This is my Yamaha TW200, and in this video I'm going to give you guys 5 things that I hate / dislike about owning this motorcycle, and things I wish Yamaha did differently, or things that I would change for my personal preference, and just things about the bike. The very first thing that I noticed while riding the bike that I did not care for was first gear. First gear is really short. There's of course a reason for it, and what I think it is just giving low-end torque, but when you're riding on the street, first gear got basically instantly change out of it, plus all the rest of the gearing ratios. I mean, it's only geared to go about 55 miles per hour. This is an older bike, and I believe they did increase the gearing a little bit, because I see some of the newer bikes that do go a little bit faster, as well as they're more efficient because they're brand new.
Now, just to demonstrate and talk about the gearing, coming to a stop real quick, the first thing I'll show you guys is first gear. First gear is incredibly short, and it makes sense, right? It makes sense that first gear is the way it is because of the trails. But right here, if I give it some good acceleration, I gotta shift basically right away to get to 20 miles per hour. But also you can go in the highest gear at 25 miles an hour and be just fine. It's geared very low. I feel like fifth gear could have been geared a little bit higher. Again, I will keep in mind that first gear, having more torque, most likely makes trail riding a little bit easier. And I will get into why I haven't gotten this bike on a trail just yet a little later in this video. But when you're street riding it, one of the downsides and the things that I kind of don't like about the bike is first gear, because we're going and I'm immediately shifting out of first. I can't even let it accelerate a little bit. It's fun in a way because, you know, you're shifting gears, you're constantly changing gears, you're constantly engaging with the bike, which is fun. Obviously over the years it definitely loses efficiency and whatnot, but one thing that doesn't change is the gear ratios unless they've gone out and changed them. This is an early 90s model, in 92, and it just seems like, and I just want a little bit more out of the gear ratios. I want to rev the bike out just a little bit more than what I'm getting from it.
The second thing I don't like about this bike is it has space for a passenger, but in reality you're not going to really be able to carry a passenger without really struggling. So normally with a passenger you probably have to sit about here. I like to sit about here on this bike. That's just where I find it to be comfortable. It's not super uncomfortable if you are a little bit forward, but the problem begins when the bike, you sit on the rear, because the suspension compresses quite a bit, and it actually does rub a little bit when you have a passenger on the motorcycle.
It really isn't made for passengers because the bike doesn't have a whole lot of power or anything, and also the suspension goes so far down, it's just not a pleasant experience riding with the passenger. For maybe like a short 2-3 minute trip, but if you're someone who is going to think about having passengers on it more than just on a small occasion, it's something to think about, that this bike really isn't good at that.
Now that brings me to the third thing that I do not like about the Yamaha TW200. Even though they have their insane positives and they're very well built bikes and they've been making them forever, the thing I don't like about them is the price. For some reason that these bikes just don't lose too much value. But not only that, looking at it from a new perspective, these bikes have got really expensive. A brand new TW200 will set you back over $5,000 plus sales tax and everything like that. You can pick up a used example of a TW200 between $2,000 and $3,000 if you look hard enough, but most of them are around $3,000 used for the 90s and early 2000s bikes. Some of the newer ones are still trading for $4,000 or $5,000, so I mean, they haven't really lost any value, so I guess it's a positive that they don't depreciate. But just looking at it from a new buyer's perspective, I don't think I would ever spend $5,500 after sales tax and everything for a TW200. I'd buy a used one, so I don't really like the MSRPs. I don't think they're quite worth that. I've bought a lot of bikes under that price point, and this would not be a bike that would be on the top of my list to spend $5K brand new for one. Now used, there is the upside where if you do want to sell it a few years later or something like that, they do hold the value, and if you buy it used, you're most likely not going to lose a whole lot. Especially around here in Wisconsin, people don't ride these things. This bike has 17,000 miles, but I've seen handfuls of bikes with under 10,000 miles on them. And that's going to bring us to the fourth thing, the power of the motorcycle. This is a 200 4-stroke single. The bike makes enough power for what it is, but I wish it had a little bit more power. It's something silly to complain about when you are riding a 200, but if I was getting this as one of my sole riders or just something that I wanted to own and really use a lot, I would be looking up to get a 250 or 300. The 200 is just a little too slow and it'd be perfect for beach cruising, but not so much perfect for just solo street riding, occasionally going to the woods or something. And that's just compared with other bikes that are made more for the streets, and bikes that are around the same price as these, which is the last point I mentioned, that are just a little bit faster than these are.
That doesn't make it a bad bike that it doesn't have power. It's kind of what gives the bike its charm, but I can always wish that this bike was a little bit faster. Now, it's not that this bike has a lack of power. We talked about this in the last video of what it's like to ride this bike. Is the bike too slow? The answer was, it's not really too slow. You'll keep up with traffic. Going on a 55, maybe a little sketchy for this bike. Going on a 45, you should be just fine. Going on a highway, absolutely not. But the thing is, this bike definitely has lost some efficiency through the years. It definitely could use better jets. It definitely could probably use a bigger jet kit, which is something I anticipate on doing. The big elephant in the room is that this is a 4-stroke 200cc single. You could always wish for more power out of that. But it is really fun to just rip around with a slow machine. It'd be nice if it was a little faster. And it's something I have to complain about, even though it's obvious. The fifth thing that I hate about the TW200, and it's that there's no trails around me. I know it's not a complaint of the motorcycle itself, but it's more of just a complaint about the area I live in. It's just unfortunate that most of the areas around here only have UTV trails and stuff like that, and most places don't allow dirt bikes. In fact, I believe the closest place to me that allows dirt bikes is Michigan. So I have to get across the borders to take this bike off-roading, unless I know someone who has some private property.
And the last and final thing isn't really a thing about the motorcycle, I guess, but it is the fact that we don't have any trails here. That's the thing that I don't like about it, is I can't really go and just ride it within a 30 or an hour distance from me and actually go take it off-road. There's no places to do that. In Wisconsin, I don't know of any places to do that, and it's really weird because there's a lot of just empty land out here, but for the most part, everything I've seen so far, talked with some of my friends who had dirt bikes in the past, they always went to private events and stuff like that, or they went out of state. With all that being said, those are the 5 things I don't like about it. Some things bigger than others. In reality, none of them are deal breakers in my opinion, other than the price point, but there's other options as well. So if you guys did enjoy the video, leave me a like, subscribe to the channel, and as always, I'll see you guys in the next video.